Hello, BookTube. I have an am reading for you this Friday. Selection of the books that I'll be reading this weekend. In fact, this might be all of them, apart from work-related stuff, that I wanted to show you and talk about a bit. The first one being almost 20 years old. It's a Star Trek novel. It's it's the first volume in a series of novels called New Earth. This first volume is called Wagon Train to the Stars. It's by Diane Carey, who also helped to develop the whole concept, which is that the Starship Enterprise under Captain Kirk and his classic crew lead a group of colonists on a very distant colonizing mission to a very distant world about which very little is known. And Starfleet wants a starship along and also a fighting tender, just in case. And they want Captain Kirk and his legendary crew to go for the PR and also, for the protection, the extra protection that the reputation provides. Diane Carey is my favorite Star Trek author, and I knew even before I read this book back in 2000 that I was going to like the knowingness of it, because Gene Roddenberry used to joke about the original Star Trek being kind of a wagon train to the stars, Wagon Train being a very popular TV show at the time. And it didn't let me down. I found this paperback, basically for free. It'll never be reprinted in a hardcover. The whole series will never come out in any other kind of way. So if I don't find it like this, I never will find it in any other way. And that's a shame, because her writing is tremendously good. And her understanding of Star Trek characters, especially the original show, I've just never seen the like of it. And this is the crew after their first 5-year mission, after they became legends in Starfleet. They're already well seasoned. They already well know each other, and she plays off that wonderfully. I know the book rather well, but I'm still really enjoying rereading it. And then the next thing is also a reread. It's The Other Queen by Philippa Gregory. This is her story of Mary Queen of Scots' captivity in England. She came to England, as allegedly a guest, and was allegedly a guest, but she was actually a prisoner. She was never going to be allowed to leave, never going to be allowed into Elizabeth's presence. Instead, she was kept by her hosts and hostess, her jailers, and that was Bess of Hardwick and her husband. And the book automatically came to mind because I'm researching Bess of Hardwick for a piece that I'm writing. And so when I found a paperback copy, the book that I had is long gone. I found a paperback copy, basically for free. I grabbed it, and I've been rereading it since, and it's remarkably good. It's tough to say with Philippa Gregory. She'll be forever famous as the person who wrote The Other Boleyn Girl, but The Other Queen is better as a book. A lot of her books are actually better. She learns as she goes along, so it's interesting in that way. But her insights into Bess of Hardwick, delightful. Her Mary Queen of Scots has been written better, but her Bess of Hardwick and poor Bess's beleaguered husband, both really well done. And then four big new books. First one was actually inspired by a YouTube video. A YouTuber that I mentioned a couple of days ago, Bobby Burns, he's usually a movie YouTuber, but he's been branching out lately into all sorts of videos about YouTube and about social media and pop culture. And he did one just recently on the YouTube happiness deception. How YouTubers, they act all manic and they plaster smiles on their face for the video, and it creates a false impression. I watched that video, and I thought it was really well done and fascinating, and it reminded me that has been a subject on BookTube too. Is your bouncing all around, fairy lights in the background, yelling at the top of your lungs presentation style in your BookTube video even remotely like the way you behave in person? Of course, the answer is always no. And I remember when I first started watching BookTube, those channels grated on me like fingers on a chalkboard. I would watch them and say, what on earth are you acting that way for? What's wrong? So do you need to call for help of some kind? And I got a book, The Happiness Effect, which is it's on exactly this subject, not just BookTube, all of social media. There's a large chunk of this that looks like it's about Facebook, and the Facebook phenomenon of people crafting in their timelines an unbelievably perfect view of how their life is. And, you don't believe it, and you know that they don't believe it, but it's done anyway. And I've actually talked to people who saw their friends talking about one triumph after another, and felt depressed by it. Felt like, well, that's their life. Everything's going right for them. Nothing's going right for me. And this book's all about that. It's all about how the things that you see from strangers or distant acquaintances on the screen of your phone in the middle of your day can actually make you unhappy. So I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm always interested in studies of social media. I wish there were more of them, considering the absolute omnipresence of the subject. The next thing is a novel, and it's a novel I've already read. This will be a reread. It's 4321 by Paul Auster, his big book that a couple of critics have been calling his magnum opus. And I admit, if the Happiness Effect was prompted by a YouTube video, this is actually one of those instances where a reread is prompted by my fellow book reviewers. I've been reading all of the reviews that this book has been getting, and there are a bunch more coming, and they're interesting enough for me to wonder if I've missed a couple of things. Now, I just recently read an interview, I think in Esquire, with Auster himself, who told the interviewer that he worked on this at lightning speed, 8 hours a day, day in and day out, without resting and without a lot of planning, for years, until it was done. I don't know that I believe that, and I don't think it works in the novel's favor to tell people that it wasn't planned. But I read it the first time and thought, well, okay, I've already read this. I've actually reviewed it. It's Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. It's you deciding that you don't want to pick one storyline and tell it. Instead, you're going to hedge your bets and tell several different versions of that storyline. It's a gimmick. They're not the only two who've done a variation of it. It's widespread now, and I don't know that I like it. It strikes me as a little bit feckless, but I've certainly seen it done well, and there were large chunks of this book that I liked. I admit, I had originally been talking to an editor of mine about reviewing it, and I admit I was glad when the conversation went in another direction. But even so, I'm going to reread it this weekend and see what it makes me think. And then there's a novel that I never actually got to. I got the advance copy. I read about a chapter, and then got swept away by some dead king or other. I don't know. It certainly wasn't a judgment against the book. I really liked the chapter that I read, and I think I showed it on this channel, and I asked around people who've been to Japan, people who may be living in Japan now, about how popular this is. It's 6-4 by Hideo Yokoyama, and the publicity material says that a couple of years ago this was a big hit in Japan, and that it still sells well in paperback. It's a murder mystery, and I was asking around. I didn't get a very clear impression of the truth of that. Actually, for this video, if any of you are in Japan watching, I'd love to know, what is this author? Is he known? Is this book known? Not that it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to read it anyway. I'm a sucker for every once in about every season, a couple of these big international crime thrillers will come down the pike, and you read in the publicity material that they've had an extensive life elsewhere. That the book you're reading in its original language already has millions of fans. That's a fascinating feeling for me always, that because it's unusual for me in American literature. I don't come late to the party, so it's a fun feeling, and so I'm gonna, I felt a little bad that I didn't ever go back to this. Now I have a finished copy, so I'm going to. Then the last thing, you didn't think you were going to get out of this video without a gigantic, tedious biography of a dead white guy, now did you? It's Jonathan Swift by John Stubbs, gigantic new biography of my beloved Jonathan Swift. I was originally thinking about making a strong case for reviewing this for the Christian Science Monitor, but then I remembered that I wrote a full-length review of the last Jonathan Swift biography and got blurbed on the paperback. And, you don't want to be that guy. so I just let it go. Instead, I'm just going to enjoy it. I had forgotten. John Stubbs did a biography of John Donne, and I'd forgotten. I reviewed that book, and I forgot how young he is. He's a baby. And yet he wrote a gigantic biography of John Donne, and now a gigantic biography of Jonathan Swift. Neither one of whom are easy subjects to write about. So you got to like his moxie. And I know the subject of Swift well. There has been no biography of him that I have missed in English, so I couldn't miss this. But it's fairly big, it's fairly hefty, and it's the type of book that I will read slowly and lovingly. So this will probably be most of Sunday. And I don't know, this Friday reads, I'm not 100% sure if I'm really counting Monday. I recently realized that Monday is a federal holiday here in America, so I will not be getting mail, and I will not be going anywhere. So I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that some of these are so big, because I will probably just spend Monday reading. But anyway, there you go. That's my cool, hip Friday reads. And as usual, I'd love to know in the comments what you're reading. And I'll talk to you soon, BookTube. Thank you.